A 33-player big board for the New York Jets 2026 draft class. Top 33 guys for me so far of the 45 or so that I've gotten to check out. And obviously the Jets have picks 2, 16, and 33. So I'm going to be spanning a lot of players that could be in range for the Jets at those 3 spots. And if you appreciate the video, a thumbs up is a free and easy way to show it. Kicking it off with Chris Brazzell, the second wide receiver, Tennessee. Well, what's the point of paying for a small 22 if you're not going to buck consensus a little bit? And this one does. He is all the way down at number 75 overall on PFF's big board here. But Chris Brazzell, to me, is the return of the sun god, Robbie Anderson. Before he became Chosen Anderson, was a pretty damn good, stretch wide receiver too in the day. And I think that's what you're getting here. A little bit of a one-trick pony because his bread and butter is just ripping the top off the defense. More than half of his 1,000 yards came on passes that were 20-plus yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Also had 9 touchdowns. So this is, I'm going to take the top off the defense, and I'm going to be good in the red zone, and I'm going to give you a vertical spacing elements that allows your other guys to work underneath. And once you get into about that pick 33, I would take that skill set. Again, think of Troy Franklin more recently in the 2023 draft class. I think it's a similar skill set, a long, rail thin, speedy receiver. Comes in, probably not the most complete, well-rounded skill set you'd like in a prototypical wide receiver too, but the production and the impact that he could bring with his in-the-gym range and what that does to a defense to have to respect his speed. Chris Brazzell kicks it off. Wide receiver, Tennessee. Getting even weirder with the top 2. Definitely a little bit of a hear me out tier. Keonte Scott, baby. I love Keonte Scott, defensive back, Miami. And as we go through this list, you're going to hear so many ifs, buts. Maybe if he develops, maybe if he gains weight, maybe if he learns how to defend the run, maybe in this system. There's no maybes with Keonte Scott. And once you're getting towards that pick 33, a sure thing at a non-flashy position, I'm going to put on the list. Scott steps in as a day 1 starter at nickel and brings a playmaking ability to a unit that was starved of any playmaking in 2025. 13 tackles for loss, 5 passes defended, 2 fumbles forced, 2 fumbles recovered, 2 pick sixes. Jarvis Brownlee has slot boundary versatility. That'll make him a nice depth sub-package piece. And Scott steps in at nickel, which this defense was played with, lack of a pass rush, bad linebackers that were overpaid, safety, just churning out different random NPCs at safety. But the nickel corner spot on this team last year they were as bad as they were due to nickel as much as any other position last year. The Isaiah Oliver variants of the world. Obviously, Brownlee he's okay. He's scrappy, but he can't stay healthy either. And when he does, he commits a million penalties. Keonte Scott, older player, like immediate starter. Remember when Michael Carter came into the Jets? I know he was a 5th round pick. It was like that impact he had before he got hurt and got shipped to Philly, those 3-4 years where he was consistently an upper echelon nickel player. Like if he was a 2nd round pick, he wouldn't have thought twice to get that kind of impact at this position. Keonte Scott, defensive back, Miami. He is number 32. Number 31, super quick review on this guy because I didn't love my list. I had to kick a couple guys out. I asked my buddy Dom C. I'm like, who can I throw in here? Who am I missing? Is Emmanuel Pregnon any good? And Dom C said yes, he's good. He could probably be a plug and play starter. He's not as good as Vega from Penn State, but he's good. So okay, there is the report on Pregnon. We'll stick another offensive lineman in there at pick 31 because I didn't feel like watching any more offensive lineman film, but he's the only one. He's my one lazy way out at 31. Going to 30, going from Oregon all the way to Florida. Caleb Banks. He's 17 for PFF, a bit lower for me just because, dude, you're going to be, he's a redshirt senior. He's going to be 25 at the end of his rookie year. He's only a year younger than Garrett Wilson, who's on his second contract. So age, there's a lot of weird age variance in this class. There's a lot of young guys, like guys who are going to be still 20 during preseason, and then guys who are going to be 25 at the end of the rookie season. That just can't be ignored. So that's why he is lower to me. But he was a really fun watch, man. He took reps everywhere. He was a zero tech. He was rushing from a 2-point stance as a stand-up outside linebacker rusher and like a wide 9. A massive human being, has legit game-wrecking power and impressive down-to-down stamina and burst for his size. He doesn't anchor down quite like a Kaden McDonald, but he's got more wiggle to him, and I think Banks would definitely be a top 15 pick to me if he was 21 years old. But he comes in and he can be an immediate 60% of the snap player with the ability to play either the 1 or the 3 tech in a 4-3 front. If we're doing a 4-3, obviously, if you're in a 3-4, then he's just your nose, and that makes things a little bit simpler for you there. He is number 30. Number 29 is R. Mason Thomas, edge, Oklahoma. He's another one I found that I threw in there because I didn't love my list, but I like R. Mason Thomas. There's a lot of intriguing undersized 3-4 outside linebacker type. So I don't know if we're going to be, I know Glenn, he's been a multiple front guy. A lot of 4-2-5 base is typical in the NFL now. So a little bit more 4-3 in Detroit. We got our defensive line coach coming over who's exclusively coached 3-4. But R. Mason Thomas, if you want a 3-4 outside linebacker and you're picking towards the end of the first round, I think you could do a heck of a lot worse. He has a little bit of a tweener in a sense, because I don't love his fluidity to do much coverage work. And he's kind of too small to be a 4-3 end, but he's too good at a crucial skill to not be on the list, and that is rushing the passer. He's competitive against the run. There's just going to be limitations with his frame. Insane first step, a good punch of power for his size. It just comes down to whether or not his run defense can meet the threshold of a 3-down edge. If you think it can, then I think he could be a great find for you at pick 33. His pass rush, the amount of wins he got, I think the 6 sacks doesn't quite do it justice. 9 sacks the year before, but you look at like over 20% pass rush win rate. The true pass sets are gnarly. The 6.2% run stop rate is decent. Like, it's not horrible. R. Mason Thomas. If you're running a 3-4, you need an outside linebacker, you don't want to spend a top 10 pick on one. He could be an option for you, definitely for the Jets in that 33 range. There's a lot of those, the kid from Illinois, Yakis. There's a lot of those just bigger, Zion Young, Missouri, those bigger edge setting guys that if you're running a 4-3, I get it. They play a role, but man, I like somebody with a little bit more juice who can get home like an R. Mason Thomas. He is 29. Number 28. Let's take a trip down to Georgia. Christen Miller, defensive interior. What was he? Number 29. Oh, so me and Trevor Sikkema are pretty much aligned on this one. Now, I think his profile is very similar to Peter Woods. I don't think he has as much juice as a pass rusher as Woods does. But he is more disruptive than his sack and tackle for loss numbers would suggest, particularly against the run. He had the 5th best run stop rate in the nation in the year before. Doesn't have much of a counter arsenal as a pass rusher like that. It's either that he wins with that initial burst of strength and athleticism, kind of like Woods in that way too. But add him to a long list of toolsy prospects who would be drafted lower in a better draft class. That's just how it goes in this draft class. Traits, young draft age, 1 tech and 3 tech versatility, make him appealing. I think a Christian Barmore could be a good outcome as a comp for him. Actually, that'd be an awesome outcome if you're talking about pick 33. Christen Miller, interior defensive lineman. Georgia could play, a 5 and an odd front 2 probably. So some versatility there. No limitations in his run defense. Very good run defender as well. Number 27. So 27 and 26 for me back to back are Dylan Dynaman, Oregon safety, and Emmanuel Warren, Toledo safety. And they're very, very similar in their skill sets. I'll bump to Warren first. I'll just go one step out of order because I do like Warren a little bit better, but they're right next to each other. Warren, man, he has range for days. A true center fielding safety with ideal length, athleticism for the spot. You need to flip your hips and you can effortlessly glide to the boundary to close on a post. I just don't think the Jets have had somebody athletically at the position who could do that. Obviously, Tony Adams was fast, but he didn't have the awareness, right? And the overall wherewithal for the game. And he'll drive down on in breaking routes. He's incredibly aggressive playing the ball. He's a willing tackler. Like, he'll get his nose dirty. And obviously his speed helps him get down in there and help out. But he looks rail thin. I know his listed, his build size isn't crazy outlier stuff for a safety. What do they have him on here? 6'2", 202. That's not crazy tiny, but he looks really, he looks like a basketball player. Like, he looks like a D1, shooting guard. So some of his play strength, he gets washed out of some run plays in almost comical ways. He's disposed of in that way. But he doesn't miss a ton of tackles when he gets there, and he's got long arms, so you could tackle outside of his frame. So that's the limitation. But in terms of if you're going to play a lot of cover one, like Aaron Glenn has done throughout his career, and you need that single high safety that you could trust to not let anything get over the top, he's your guy. He's your guy. And I know Daniel Jeremiah actually had him as a top 20 player. He's really high on him. Warren, very fun watch. Now, Dynaman, you can pretty much everything I said about Warren applies to him, but I do think the play strength is better, even though, he's a similar size, 6 foot, 205, so a little bit more compact. I thought his tackling was honestly more concerning than Warren. It's just like looking for tight ends who can block in college. It's like the safeties just can't tackle. So it's like, who can you teach how to tackle besides Caleb Downs? No, none of these safeties are going to come in and be great tacklers right away. But he reminds me of a better version of Cole Bishop coming out of Utah, where it's like, man, there's just athletic traits for days. Trust your coaching staff. Understand it might not be pretty right away. And you look at Cole Bishop down the stretch, he turned into a really key cog of the Bills secondary. Was making all kinds of plays for them. So I think he offers a little bit more versatility just because of his play strength. Probably a little bit more comfortable like being more of a buzzer or a robber in cover 3 and cover 1 respectively, than instead of just being like the deep safety like Warren. But I think it's the tackling is a little bit more concerning for him. Because there was a lot of plays where he just the pursuit angles where he didn't even get a finger on a guy. Just a little bit too many of those reps that have many higher than this. But Dynaman and Warren, back-to-back safeties, I think both could be plug-and-play starters next to Malachi Moore, and nice complementary skill sets to him. Again, you're talking pick where I think we're still hoping these guys fall to pick 33 range. I don't think we've really got to the pick 16 range as of yet. Now, number 25. Georgia and Ohio State will frequent the list. CJ Allen, linebacker. So CJ Allen, he's scrappy, man. He's small, but he plays with the tenacity and the stopping power of a 250-pound linebacker. You could think of the some of the line of scrimmage impact in the run game and the screen game that when Quincy was good under Robert Saleh, that's the kind of impact that he has, and that thump and that you can he pops off the screen and you can hear it. Like when he hits people, he audibly hits people. Right now, he's a compact build, so he's got subpar length, and I would say not the most agile in coverage. So I think when asked to play man coverage, like if you're looking for somebody who could finally cover a tight end, that's probably not going to be him. You're probably going to have to spend a higher pick on that and go get yourself some Sonny Styles, who will obviously be on the list. But he's a plug and play starter at a position of massive need for the Jets. And I think he's coming in where you already know half of the game, the screen game and the run game, he's going to be really good at that. Like check probably as a rookie, he'll be pretty good about that. And he's a decent blitzer. Obviously, you could see the splits here, pretty big disparity between the run defense grade and the coverage grade. Yeah, I don't love CJ Allen. Like to me, a 16 would be a reach, but at 33, I think you could do a lot worse than CJ Allen at 33. And that's still the range we're kind of in, I think. Next up, we're going to get into some receivers. So we got 3 receivers in a row, and I think the order that they are in, or maybe that one of them is even on the list, might surprise you a little bit. Number 24 for me is Denzel Boston. And there's a few players, Denzel Boston, TJ Parker, with bigger sample sizes. They've been risers for me a bit. I like Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston is, I think, a little bit of a poor man's Carnell Tate, if that's the skill set that you want. It's a contested catch player who has a little bit more juice than your typical contested catch merchant. He's got a little bit more swivel in his hips than normal. And he's got a bigger catch radius than Tate. He can't separate nearly as well. That is a worry to me. You worry about a collegiate receiver whose bread and butter is like just yak or just contested catches. You worry about that, but he is really good at it. 77% contested catch rate is stupid. 3% drop rate. You can live with that all day. Good enough production over 800 yards his last 2 seasons. And he effortlessly tracks the deep ball and great with late hands. Really good in the red zone. They would run this same slot fade to him, and he'd have really good balance and like awareness that I think somebody who busts like Keon Coleman doesn't have that, where like Keon Coleman, both of your feet land out of bounds when the throw was over here. How's it happen? Not so with Boston. He's got good awareness. He's got a prototypical X wide receiver build, been a red zone machine, and he offers virtually nothing after the catch. And you do worry if the game speeds up a touch, like, is he just going to not be able to get open? But I think he could churn out high-end wide receiver 2 production in the right offense. And he clocks in at 24. 23, staying with wide receivers. Concepcion. Now, obviously, that drop rate is sticking out to you like a sore thumb. Not ideal. That was the highest of his 3 years, 10%, but over anything over 8%. And yeah, it's not great. But basically, if he had 5 drops, his percentage would be kind of normal. So you're talking about 2 more drops you have to live with. Not good. But man, this kid is all kinds of juiced up, man. Concepcion is electric. He's an interesting skill set too, because he's incredibly explosive with excellent yak, a knack for making insane contested catches. But he'll also just drop more layups than you'd like. Like if he didn't have these concentration drops, he'd be a lot higher. Like he'd be towards like a hell yeah pick 16 for me if that drop rate was 5%. That's how dynamic I think he is. He is an injection of explosiveness for any offense willing to live with some of the trade-offs of a drop or two more than you'd like, and obviously a lot of slot usage here. But there's Zay Flowers. There is Zay Flowers in his game for sure, and I can't quit these type of receivers, man. I'm trying to. Like Elijah Moore, he got me. I was so bought in, man. Zay Flowers, I loved. Although Zay Flowers has been good, to be fair. But Casey Concepcion, man, there is a higher bust rate than you like with this prototype of receiver, but I can't unsee what I saw in the dude's film. He's electric. Playmaker for sure. We could use one. He is number 23. Number 22 for me, and this is a player that I actually would take at 16, and that's probably one of the hotter takes besides having Keonte Scott and Chris Brazzell cameos in the bottom of the list, and I stand by that, especially Keonte Scott. I don't care. I'll take that to my grave. Now, Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver, Indiana. I initially wanted to check out Elijah Surratt, and I'm not just being salty because we didn't get the number one pick. Mendoza wasn't wowing me when I watched these receivers. I know it's heresy to say Mendoza wasn't looking like Joe Burrow to me, but whatever. I'd still take him if we could. But anyway, Omar Cooper Jr., you know what I love about Omar Cooper Jr.? He's a normal receiver, right? Because like Denzel Boston, he's a kind of a contested catch guy. Casey Concepcion slot only kind of drops like yucky, niche skill set kind of players. Chris Brazzell is like 7 feet tall and runs really fast, but like not many receivers are built like that. Branch and Burks are kind of those smaller yak guys too. Omar Cooper Jr. is just your standard. I am 6 feet and a half, 206 pounds. I can line up at all three positions and just be a professional receiver for you. Because that'd be nice, man. And I would take him at number 16. I think that's where the range starts for him. And he jumped off my screen when I went to watch Surratt. And there's so many plays where I'm like, he's not going to catch that. He's not going to catch that. And he does. Like he squeezes so much more out of his catch radius than you would think with his build. He just so many balls where he just right by his fingertips, he pulls it in. And after the catch, he's like a running back with the ball in his hands. He's got great contact balance and awareness. Certainly the benefit, obviously, of good quarterback play and good coaching, like all the Indiana receivers. But I think what Parker Washington became for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year, I think Omar Cooper Jr. Could be a very high-end wide receiver too in short order for you and have a normal, balanced wide receiver skill set for once would be kind of nice. Now, as we keep going, we're probably going to get into some guys that you've seen mocked at the 16 pick kind of range. No more massive surprises in this area, but probably some surprises in the order of which they're in. You know everybody else who's probably going to be in the list, but I think some of their order of which they're in might be surprising. So number 21, we are going to the Falkland Islands. We're going to meet the Falkers, the Keldric Faulk of it all. He's my new Peter Woods. So this is the kind of player that it's like Michael Williams from last year that just goes in the first round every year. Super young, super big, who is going to bring a pretty decent floor of run defense, and you hope has enough traits that you can teach them to rush the passer a bit. Now, with the caveat with him, I don't like that kind of player, but I can't ignore that he did have 9 sacks in 2024 and on his true sophomore season. So he had a pop in production. So 2 sacks, 9 sacks, 2 sacks. So that's in there somewhere, right? And his pass rush win rate in 2024 was like 18%. So it's in there somewhere. And his alignment was a little bit different. Like you see, he lined up a lot more head up over tackle. Uh, so a little bit more of an interior um, defensive line split in 2024. So maybe that's just where he's better. I think this is a 3-4 defensive end. And I think that's why he was better. I think he's just going to be better winning against guards and using his length and athleticism against guards. I don't think he has the gas to live as a 3-down 4-3 end. And I think he's a little too light in the pants. What is he? 6'6", 285. That's a little too light in the pants to be a full-time 3 tech. Because 6'6" is tall. Like a 3 tech is someone who's like, 6'3", 305, right? So he is kind of pigeonholed to me. If you're running an odd front, he could be your 5 tech. And I think he'd be fine. And I think you're looking at this sophomore year production, young draft age. He's shown you could do it when he gets that alignment split that favors him a little bit. But I don't see the alignment versatility really. I think he's got to be an odd front. But if he is, you could take him and plug and play and start him, and he could be pretty damn good for you. You could do a lot worse than Keldric Faulk in this draft class. Moving into the top 20, kicking off the top 20 is Kenyon Sadiq, tight end, Oregon. If you're still around for the top 20 and you haven't hit the thumbs up or subscribe, what the heck is going on, man? But Sadiq is, are the Jets going to take a tight end? Because you have to take him at 16, probably. So is that the resource allocation we necessarily want here? Probably not. And not the typical production you'd want from a pass catcher in the top 20. You'd be betting on upside, another young player, 20 years old, really good athlete, built like a Greek god. And I came away impressed with a lot of the different Ducks pass catching options. He didn't really stand out as the true alpha, but he did lead the team in receptions and touchdowns, and they were a top 5 team in the nation. He was lethal on seam routes and would give linebackers fits. Really scrappy as a blocker. You have to be at Oregon because they were a run first team. So they line him up at H-back and he'd do his thing, cooking in the wide zone. So I like his blocking profile. I have no issues with that, actually. Again, considering his age and the strength that he has. So you can get him on the field plenty with Mason Taylor, and you could live in 12 personnel. But I think it would kind of marry you to 12 personnel. You feel like you wouldn't be able to be as multiple. And the Jets already last year were like, it's a yin and a yang because it gives you the option to have multiple tight end sets, but you feel like you'd have to do that to justify picking him. So that's why I don't love it after drafting Mason Taylor, because I think at the end of the day, if you looked at the receiving production they were giving you collectively between Taylor and Sadiq, you'd be like, do we need to spend a 16th overall pick and a 42nd overall pick to get that? But if the Jets come away, if their plan is to try and get, a stud defensive player, edge rusher at pick number 2, which I think is likely, and then they have their eyes on pass catcher at pick 16, which I know the draft isn't a shopping list, but I think those would be the top 2 things I would want to accomplish. Kenyon Sadiq could very well be their highest rated pass catcher that's on the board at pick 16. So I'll keep an open mind. It would just feel weird to pass on Warren, Bowers, and Colston Loveland for good reasons. You got to get your tackles. To then finally the first round tight end we would take would be Kenyon Sadiq, but could be the best pass catcher there when they're picking at 16. We'll keep an open mind. He's at number 20. Number 19 was one of my favorite watches. Again, he is another one of these small. Now he has the T-Rex arms that Bain has. Cashius Howell is if you took David Bailey and you gave him Ruben Bain's tiny arm length. That's who he is. But I think Cashius Howell, of the edge rushers that I watched in this class, which is a decent amount because I watched our Mason Thomas, TJ Parker, Bailey, if you want to consider Reese's edge reps. And so probably 6 or 7 edge rushers. He has, I think, the most varied bag, the most ways to win. He's got a nasty spin. He's got a little lateral hop swipe. He has that Von Miller like ghost shimmy where defenders don't even get their hands on him. He has elite get off. He's like the a souped up version of Bryce Huff, kind of, right? Super compact, crazy get off, pretty good play strength as a power rusher, more punch than you think with his frame. Can just be massively disruptive, can get home and finished. 12 sacks after 10 sacks as a true freshman. All the nerdy pass rush stats off the charts. Run defense, yeah, man, they could kind of turn him and wall him off pretty good. So to me, he is limited to a 3. He's another guy who's limited to a 3-4. If you're going to be a 3-4 front, and you can kind of mitigate his deficiencies in the run to some extent, because if you're running a 4-3, I just don't think you can have him and Will McDonald as 2 guys on your team that you spent first round picks on, right? But if you're running a 3-4, I think it gives you a little bit more options. But man, someone's going to get an absolute dynamite pass rusher in Cashius Howell. Like, I know that the line for Bailey is he's the best pass rusher right now. And I think he is the best pass rusher that you're confident could be a 3-down player and play in multiple fronts. But I think the straight up best just pass rush for pass rush, man. I'm going to line you up on a tackle on 3rd and 8. Young man, take us home. I don't know if it's not Cashius Howell. Really. He's absolutely gnarly. Really fun player. Just another size outlier that, if he was 6-inch longer wingspan and 14 pounds heavier, you're probably talking about top 10 pick, but got to have some threshold somewhere, and he does fall short of them in a pretty historic fashion. 1%, 1 percentile arm length for him, along with Bailey. Number 18, completely different type of player. Kaden McDonald, who it's not even that Kaden McDonald has grown on me. It's that I got to take my own advice, right? Because sometimes when you're as a podcaster, you'll give an option, and sometimes people will be like, "No, that guy sucks. That would be the worst." And oftentimes they'll be like, "Okay, well, like, who do you want?" And sometimes people don't really have an answer to that. And it's like, yeah, well, okay, so that's kind of what we're dealing with. And with McDonald, I'm like, I don't really like him at 16, but I don't like a lot of guys at 16 who are probably going to be there. So at some point, it's like, okay, this is what pick 16 is, right? And I think that with McDonald, the Jets is particularly if they go Reese at 2, which is, I think, I don't think he's as boomer busty as people make him out to be, but he's definitely a little bit more of a higher variance, more of a projection, requires more development than some other options at 2. They might want to settle down at 16 and get kind of a safe bet, right? They're going to take the Dave Kingman swing for the fences at pick 2, and then come around and say, you know what, we're just going to rip a double into the gap at pick 16. Now, he is truly like an immovable object on the Ohio State front. I think he could bring like a Travis Jones kind of impact, what he brings to the Baltimore Ravens defense that can't just be quantified in his counting stats. Low risk, moderate reward option. He's going to be very good at what he does. It's just what he does can often be found later in the draft. But a safe pick here. Bonus points for he wears like eye black over his entire face. And he's another player who has not turned 21 yet. So is there even more power and then even some more refinement that could be done to chip in as a pass rusher? Because he's a player where even if he can become a guy who can give you 35 pressures and like 3-4 sacks, like, hell yeah, you'll take that. Because I think he can single-handedly change the way your front defends the run. He's gnarly. Run stop rate 13.8% is crazy. Pass rush win rate at 4% is pretty gross, man. Got some work to do there. Number 17 for me is Ty Simpson, quarterback, Alabama. And I think he's kind of, it's not even that he is, where did he go? There he is. Yeah, 33 on their big board, and I'd probably almost agree with that, but it's just quarterbacks obviously get a bump, but you can't get too crazy. And I think that this is just the range where all the guys I've mentioned to this point, I don't love enough, and I think there's enough risks with a lot of them, especially the risks at the premium positions because the edge rushers are all weird and the receivers are weird. That's where I think you could make the bet. I think there's a world where at pick 16, if the top 3 receivers are gone, the top 3 edge rushers are gone, the elite guys at non-premium positions like Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, I would consider Spencer Fano that as a guard prospect. I think he'd be an elite guard prospect. How athletic he is crazy. So with all those guys being gone, like, okay, Ty Simpson, I would get it. Wouldn't prefer it, but I would get it. And he was playing as well as any quarterback in the country the first half of the season. Obviously, he fizzled down the stretch. There's just, this class is not 30 players deep with first round talent, right? He has a good, not great arm and capable athlete. He can command line of scrimmage. He can make anticipation throws. I think for a 1-year starter, he's going to come in not necessarily pro ready because he's very limited with experience. He doesn't have crazy traits to make up for it, but I do think that he would know how to play the position and have like a better command right off rip in camp than most guys who are 1-year starters because of how long he got to sit and just because of what he's demonstrated. I think he's like a coach's son, all that stuff. Okay. But he's soon to be 24 years old. Again, 1-year starter, a little small, not minuscule, but a little small. Started bailing from some clean pockets the last month of the season. But you can't rule out the Jets taking him at 16. I think you could ask yourself, like, is a 1/3 chance, is a 33% chance that he could be the guy? Is that more valuable than Keldric Faulk or whatever? That could be part of the equation. And I think that the Jets brought in Frank Reich. I don't think the Jets brought in Frank Reich to get the most out of Jacoby Brissett only. Maybe they did, but I think you're bringing a Frank Reich because you want to develop a quarterback at some point. And I think that some point could start the quarterback watch for that some point could be at pick 16. And obviously with Mendoza gone, the next guy up would be Ty Simpson. Number 16. Speaking of, how about this? We go right from reaching for a mediocre quarterback. And then how about a corner coming off of a torn ACL? Don't you love this video? But dude, Jermod McCoy, 11th overall player for PFF. Obviously, he didn't play the whole season, but he tore the ACL the January after the season before. So it's going to be 18 months in the rearview mirror, the ACL surgery, by the time training camp starts. And it's not an Achilles. An ACL these days, you can come back from that when you're 21, 22 years old. And he reminds me of Will Johnson from last year, where it's like, dude, his tape from the previous year is better than all the defensive backs in this class. Someone's going to get a steal. I thought I was doing mock drafts last year, giving the Raiders Will Johnson at pick 7. And I still don't know if they should have done that over Genti, because Will Johnson stepped in and looked like a dude right away. With the Cardinals, unfortunately, he got hurt again. So I don't know. There's some risk there, of course. But if you want a BPA, like I think him and Jeremiah Love, if he's there, it might not be. More likely McCoy is there. Like, he is the BPA test. Because everybody wants to BPA until it's time to really BPA. Because this is really BPAing at 16. I think if he's there, he's probably the best player available. So are you about that BPA life? Because Jermod McCoy you're going to find out. Now, obviously, corner is not the biggest pressing need. I think this would be not even a hedge against AZ Thomas. I think it would be just drafting 1 year ahead of need, with Stevens probably being a cap casualty a year from now. So I'm looking at this as you take McCoy. He's fully healthy because that ACL is 18 months away. Obviously, he's got to be a plug-and-play starter as his top 20 pick. He probably starts with the veteran Stevens on the boundary. AZ Thomas, who's going to be 22 years old still next year. former third-round pick who missed a bunch of time his rookie year. He's the third corner who will get some work. And then the next year, you have Jermod McCoy and AZ Thomas, 22 and 23 years old, on rookie deals starting as your corners. That's kind of the idea. Now, while you traded Sauce to draft a corner, I was well, you got 2 first-round picks, so you could draft a corner, and you get something else, and you got AD Mitchell, right? McCoy is the BPA. He will test the BPA, bros. He will find out if you mean what you say when you say BPA. Number 15, Akheem Mesidor. Obviously, age is a factor. I think that if he was not, like if he didn't get banged up previously and wasn't older, I think this is a top 10 pick in this draft class if he was 22 years old. Because if you watch the Miami's defense, which is just disgusting, and they have that defensive tackle is probably be a first-round pick next year, and all the stunts and twists they run, like Bain is a better prospect because he's got defensive tackle versatility. He's like 3 years younger, so I think that's the main reason. But just edge rep for edge rep, it wasn't that far off Bain from Mesidor. It really wasn't. I mean, look at the analytic profile is disgusting. 13 sacks, over 20% pass rush win rate. Is graded in true pass sets as good as anybody in the country. I think he is very similar to the profile of player that Jermaine Johnson was coming out of Florida State. A little older, big, 265-pound, long arm, just standard build for a prototypical 4-3 defensive end. And I think the trade-off of, the age, obviously, maybe his potential is a little bit more capped. But I think the trade-off that you're getting is he'll be ready to play right away for a team that like they need another starting edge in base. And I think if Jermaine Johnson can come back and be closer to what he was in 2023, and you have him and Mesidor starting in base, if you're running a 4-3, who knows? We'll keep going back and forth with different options as we talk about these players and how they fit. But if you're running a 4-3 and you're taking Mesidor, you have him and JJ in base and McDonald as your DPR. That's you could work with that. You can work with that in your edge room for sure. Mesidor is nasty, man. I love Mesidor's game. Number 14 seems to be kind of the consensus, I would say, corner in the class, and I think that's a lot of bit just because McCoy didn't play the year before. It's going to drop you a bit. Mansoor Delane, cornerback LSU. I do have a suspicion. I don't know if it's going to be at pick 16. I prefer it not to be, but the Jets need just so many how many positions could they not take? I think with their first 4 picks, so the high picks this year, the only position I think I could rule out is tackle, offensive tackle. I really think that's about it. Now, Delane is your typical tape and just trusting your eye test over the crazy analytical profile that could tug at Aaron Glenn's heartstrings. He's a prototypical press man corner. He's not afraid to tackle. And corner is a position that Aaron Glenn has demonstrated he does not want a lot of question marks at. He signed Stevens day 2 of free agency after paying Sauce, followed up by a top 75 pick with AZ Thomas, and then they traded for another corner in Brownlee. And the positional, the resource allocation is the same as it would be for McCoy. Obviously, he steps in and starts across from Stevens, and then he and AZ Thomas take over on rookie deals the following year after you save, $13 million by cutting Stevens is how I guess it would go. Number 13. It's time. We've put it off long enough. Where is he? We're going into the woods. Peter Woods, interior defensive line. Clemson. Peter Woods is juiced the hell up, man. He reminds me so much of Sheldon Richardson coming out of the draft. And I know Sheldon Richardson, I think a lot just due to reasons other than his talent, did not have a great NFL career, but he came out of college ready to play, was defensive player of the year for the Jets. And that's who he reminds me of. He was dominant as a true freshman and really good as a sophomore before regressing his junior year. So I think you're getting and remember, he was like a top 3 pick on the way too early, mock drafts. So I think with him and TJ Parker, who, spoiler alert, is next. TJ Parker, I checked out some of his 2024 cut-ups, massive riser for me. So these two players, Parker and Woods, defensive linemen, young, had early breakouts and then regressed. Both of them this year. I think you could be buying at a dip here with both of them. Now, Woods is this insane athlete for the position. They lined him up everywhere. They lined him up just standing up and rushing like he was a 3-4 outside linebacker. That didn't go great. I wouldn't recommend that, but it just showed the confidence that they had in his overall athletic ability. They line him up as a zero tech, right over the center to stop the run. I think his best fit is as a 3 tech in a 4-3. I think that's where he could do his most damage. Tape is littered with just demolition run stuffs. As a pass rusher, he kind of wins immediately or not at all. His pass rushing reps remind me a lot of Mason Graham's last year, where it's like his get off is so good and his initial hand movements are so violent that he could win really, really quickly. But if he doesn't, another guy with short arms and who doesn't have a lot of counters. So production does not match the traits right now, but hey, tap the sign of this draft class. 20-year-old, traits, relatively highly impactful position. He's in the top 15. Checks in at number 13. Peter Woods. His teammate, TJ Parker, edge rusher from Clemson. I think similar, a little bit of a similar profile to Mesidor. Maybe not quite as powerful, but I think a little bit more athletic in Parker. And I think you can make the argument that TJ Parker, who you can already see his 2024 season was much better, much more productive. But I think you can make the argument that TJ Parker might have the most complete size, athlete, age, health profile of any edge in the class, right? The most well-rounded, where nothing sticks out to you as like a major red flag besides like the dip in production this year. And you can't, an 11 sack breakout in his true sophomore season. No concerns as a 3-down ability. If you're going to run a 4-3, you could definitely do that for you. A nasty long arm, a strip sack artist. He had 6 forced fumbles in 2024. So Parker and Mesidor are similar players to me, but I'm going to bet on the guy who's 3 years younger, and he is my edge number 4. In this one, he checks in at number 12. Number 11, and I didn't watch any of the tackles. So obviously, like Mawanoa, but besides Fano, Fano is the only tackle I checked out. So I'm sure Mawanoa would be on the Jets top 33 big board. He's not, but Fano is to me because I think he would be disgusting as a guard if you're a team that's going to run a good amount of wide zone, and Frank Reich has done that in the past. And I think athletically, like what AVT was, but a little bit almost smaller. He kind of like, if you saw him warming up, you might think he was a tight end, but preposterous athlete for the offensive line position. And you want to get out there in wide zone runs. You want to run counter. You want to run in the screen game. I think this kind of athlete could really change your offensive line, and you're taking him and maybe they don't, obviously if they don't re-sign like AVT or make a big investment at guard, if they have some, kind of band-aid at guard and free agency that allows them to make this kind of investment. If for whatever reason he's there at 16, he's a hell yeah. He's a hell yeah, run it up at 16 and kick him inside the guard and don't look back for 10 years. Kind of player here. Spencer Fano. I'm sure you could probably say the same thing about Mawanoa. But I didn't get to him. But Fano I knew was a stupid athlete So I just wanted to check out his film, and it was fun. It was fun watching the way he moves. He's number 11. Number 10, another BPA bro, Jeremiah Love. Now, you do know, if you've watched my streams, that if I was NFL commissioner or even elected president, I would still do this. If I was elected president, I would make it illegal to draft a running back in the first round if you sucked the year before. I would. So Love is kind of an in-betweener because you're not taking him at 2 if you're the Jets, and I don't think he's going to be there at 16. But to fill out a board, we got to put him on here somewhere. And you never know. I do think, like, between him, Styles, and Downs, I think there's teams that need receivers, that need the couple of the tackles, that need the 3 edge rushers, that maybe there's a quarterback or 2 that go in there. And one of those guys who plays a non-premium position, Down, Styles, or Love, could be there at 16. It could. Happens all the time. And Love has legitimate, like, lead the league in scrimmage yard type of potential, right? And I think he's the most complete running back prospect since Bijan Robinson, to be honest. And in the world of Keldric Faulks, if you could take that, and Aaron Glenn saw how Jahmyr Gibbs, not the same exact stylistically, but an elite running back prospect, how Jahmyr Gibbs changed the dynamic of the Lions offense. Yes. But I think he was drafted long after the Lions built a lot more foundational pieces. So obviously not the biggest need. Of course, if you re-sign Breece Hall, Love would be better than him, but the improvement of going from Hall to a Love, like, there's a lot of other areas in the team that you could use that improvement a lot more, I would say. But he's too talented to be any lower than number 10. It was like Genty last year. It's like, yeah, they're not going to take him at 7, but I can't put him behind, like, Michael Williams or whatever, right? Number 9. Big Vega, Penn State. This is a hell yeah to me at pick 16 because I don't care about the Jets have taken too many first round offensive linemen. Like, because he, relative to what else you could accomplish with this pick, if he's there and you can get a dude who's played, just look at all the reps he's played too at left guard, almost 2,000 snaps at left guard, who's going to bring a mean streak and an immediate plug and play capable starter on your offensive line. And now, like, you just need to have a center. You could maybe draft a center that could develop to a starter in the 4th round. And you could potentially have your entire offensive line, like, squared away on rookie contracts. Yeah, a really quality guard costs, 15 to 18, even up to 20 million. Like, Robert Hunt got 20 million. Guys, yeah, it's like 18 million. Like what Kevin Dotson got is kind of the starting benchmark for a guard. So you're talking pick 16 if you can get an $18 million asset. Yeah, he's a hell yeah to me. At pick 16, I would love it, to be honest. Number 8, Jordyn Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. We don't really talk about Tyson, do we, as Jet fans? He really doesn't get nearly as much love as Tate or Lemon. And I do like Tate or Lemon better. They're still going to be on the list. Tyson, I think it's the injuries worry me. I don't if the Jets are going to be taking a risk, I'd rather take a risk on, like, a skill set at a premium position, but it's not the injuries, because you're just going to feel so stupid if you draft him and he's injured and he's not helping you, right? But I think you can make the case that Jordyn Tyson is wide receiver 1. I think it would be not that hard of a case to make, just purely based on tape. You could argue he's wide receiver 1. Obviously, he had the nagging upper body and lower body injuries, followed by the initial ACL tear. But he's faster than Tate. He's bigger than Lemon. There are plays where he reminds me of Garrett Wilson in terms of the crazy ballet acts in the air to come away with contested catches that he has no right to catch. But he does not bring nearly the juice in terms of yak that Garrett did. Now, maybe he did in previous seasons. I'm just talking about what I watched from this season. I did not see a dynamic yak player. Now he was fast, so if you get him on a screen, he can chew up some grass, but he was not elusive with the ball in his hands, from what I saw. But he does separation comes easy to him. He's got a suddenness to him. He's twitchy. He's got deep ball tracking. So he's got prototypical wide receiver size, catch radius, where Tate is like a little slower, Lemon a little smaller. So he's got a nice complete package of a skill set to him. Could be a wide receiver one in this league. Medicals are just going to be huge for him, and that's what bumps him down. Number 7 to me this is probably lower than maybe most, but number 7 to me is Caleb Downs, safety. I think this starts the tier of could potentially be the number 2 pick. Like if Caleb Downs is number 2 pick, it'd be a shocker, but it wouldn't be, I don't know how to say it. You get what I'm saying? Like it's within the realm of possibility. Our Mason Thomas isn't going to be the 2nd overall pick, but Caleb Downs, it starts the realm of possibility. And this is when you're talking about a safe bet, it's probably as safe as you could get with Downs. He would give the Jets the ability to dictate their personnel on the back end. Like guys like, I think he's more a little bit similar to Derwin James than Kyle Hamilton, because Kyle Hamilton has uncanny range and length for the position where you really trust him to do anything. Downs a little bit more compact, but man, he is so smart, so instinctive, sniffs out plays before they're happening. A lot of the things that were super frustrating about the Jets 2025 defense, he would make a lot better, particularly the ability to sniff out those like obvious little play action boots and leaks where they're just getting free yards of yak. Like he would clean up so much of that. And a lot of the missed tackles from the safety position that has plagued this defense for a long time. He comes in and he cleans that up. It's just a matter of it's getting really tight down here with the top 7. And there's just players I really, really also like that are playing more impactful positions. Because if it's close, then the positional value is a tiebreaker. So I don't see him quite as good as Kyle Hamilton was, but he's very, very good. Definitely be a top 10 pick. And I watched, when I was watching him, I was watching his cut ups, and then I was going back to watch Bain because I got another game of Bain. And I think just watching Downs and Bain back to back, it was just such a reminder. And obviously we know this, but it was such a reminder of how much more impactful a defensive lineman is than a safety, because there were so many plays and maybe I just got a weird sample of games. I didn't watch 12 games. I didn't watch 15 games, whatever. Maybe I got a weird sample of games. So if you're an Ohio State fan, you can correct me. Although I catch Downs when I watch Reese and McDonald, all these Styles, all these guys. He did play a bit more like free safety looks than looking at what PFF charted him as. So either my eyes don't work or PFF charts him kind of weird. I thought he'd be sniffing around the box a little bit more. And there were so many plays where it was like he wasn't in the play just because he's a safety. He's back there. A run play. Oh, it's stuffed by the time he gets up there. Oh, they didn't throw it to his side. Oh, they avoided his one-on-one matchup, right? And then when you're watching Bain, it's like every rep or every other rep, his nose is in the play in some capacity, right? Especially when Bain is like predator sliding across the line of scrimmage, like just a level. And we all know this. It's football 101. The trenches are first, but he just was such a contrast, right? Such a juxtaposition of how much more impactful a defensive lineman was. And I just bumped Caleb Downs a couple of spots down for that. But obviously, really awesome player. The Jets have not been able to cover a tight end in years. So he would step in as a centerpiece in Glenn's secondary. And I think his range does start at 2. I think there could be a GM who thinks he should be the first non-quarterback taken. Speaking of elite players at non-premium positions, right behind him, his teammate, Sonny Styles. And I think that the The Devin Lloyd comp I've made so many times is so awesome. I'd rather just sign Devin Lloyd if you could. I'll sign Devin Lloyd. They don't have to spend pick 16 on Sonny Styles if he even makes it past the Cowboys at 12. But the Jets linebacking core was one of the worst in the NFL in coverage last year, and they missed far too many tackles. Sonny Styles, former safety, great length, athletic profile to be a really impactful coverage player, blitzer. But right away, it's the run defense that and is going to be, I think, the strength of his game as a rookie. He doesn't miss tackles. He's so the whole Ohio State defense, like him and Downs are so instinctive. Like they just seem to know what exactly where the play is going. That's why I like these Ohio State defenders, Reese, Styles, Downs. They just know exactly where the play is going. They were phenomenally coached by Matt Patricia. I think a linebacker who can cover, although off-ball linebacker in itself is not a premium position, a linebacker who can cover is a very scarce skill set, and he is an absolute smash it at 16. If he falls, hell to the for Sonny Styles. He is number 6. Yes, he's number 6. Number 5, Carnell Tate, wide receiver. Here's a Styles graphic. I forgot to throw it on the screen. There he is. I love the average depth of run tackle at 3.1 yards, and 2.2% missed tackle rate is absolutely stupid. But Carnell Tate, once you see George Pickens, you can't unsee it. Once you see that as his comp, it is very hard to unsee it. Just got another game of Tate in the books, watched him versus Penn State this year. And he had a first play of the game. He had a beautiful win on a dig route on like a dagger concept, 18 yards over the middle, contested catch, takes a shot on the chin, stands up for the Joe Tittman first down sign. Like he's just always pointing first down, even when it's not a first down. Love that. And then later in the game, from the slot, does like a little skinny post go ball, like double move kind of route, whatever. And just the swivel of his hips on that route. Like I watched it like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, man, a guy with that frame, not the fastest guy, but he just is so effortless in and out of his breaks. He's so smooth. Remember AJ Green, who was just 6'4", lanky, long arms, not a 4'3" guy, but just could swivel those moves and separate so effortlessly. And then he had like 5 yards of separation, had to wait on an underthrown ball and caught it for the touchdown. But yeah, man, I think Carnell Tate can come in and as a 1A to Garrett Wilson. And I think if we're ruling out him or Lemon at 2, to be honest, I think that we are overrating some of the edge players in this class. I think the receivers are right up there, and you could justify Carnell Tate at pick number 2 and swinging around and getting your Akheem Mesidor or your TJ Parker at pick 16. I think that is absolutely just as valid as going defense first and seeing what pass catcher or whatever else there is left at 16. So Carnell Tate, love him, man. Yeah, he was a wide receiver 2 in college. Sorry, he had to play with like the best receiver prospect since Julio Jones or Jamar Chase in Jeremiah Smith. He's number 5. Number 4 is Makai Lemon, and you could put him in any order. I know I'm definitely higher on Makai Lemon than most, and you know he does look, when you watch him on film, he does look small. He looks pretty small. He's kind of got short arms. Interesting to see what he measures in at, listed at 5'11", 195, which isn't tiny, but definitely on the smaller end. And the JSN comps are going to be there, and you can't just say, hey, Makai Lemon's going to be the best receiver in football or the most productive by year 3. You can't just throw that on a guy who's an unknown. I understand that, but I think the similarities are jarring. And I think it's same kind of thing where he's flying under the radar. He's being underrated. He's viewed as, he's a high floor, good player, not great. Pick 12, pick 15, pick 16. Man, I think this is a player where if you do go defense first, I think trading up for him would be a valid consideration, even if it cost you pick 44. And you could say, we're going to get a game wrecker with pick 2, and we're going to get a 1A, like alpha complement to Garrett that you could run the offense through in stretches if Garrett has to miss time like he was INR last year. We didn't have a single receiver get 400 yards. He solves that in pretty short order. And there is the last 4 receivers who have had over 3.0 yards per route run versus zone and versus man. The last 4 to do that: JSN, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase. There's just things from a production standpoint that receivers who do this their last year of college produce on Sundays at a high level. He squeezes every inch of catch radius out of his small frame. His body control to pluck the ball out of the air that he has no right to catch. And the Jets have had 5 different defensive players make an all-pro and 3 different special teams players make an all-pro since their last offensive all-pro. So that's 8 all-pros on offense or specials since our last offensive all-pro. Haven't had a top We've had a top scoring defense as recently as 22-23. Haven't had a top even 20 scoring offense since 2015. But yet we have to spend 12 straight picks on defense. I don't know. I think we got defensive jet mind virus, and it's okay to break it with a little lemon juice, with a little Carnell Tate. Man, I think receiver at 2, I don't think they'll do it, but I would not be mad if they dabbled into the receiver waters at 2. Now, the top 3, you know who they are. It's just a matter of order, because I do think, I like the receivers, they're not 1, 2, and 3, and that is because I think the best thing that the Jets could accomplish with the number 2 overall pick is a game-wrecking line of scrimmage defender. Right? That covers us with Reese, who's coming up soon, right? But Bailey, like JSN at wide receiver, he did things from a production and analytic standpoint that do that their last year in college, they do it in the NFL. Right? You're really confident that he is going to rush the passer at the next level. He was top 3 in the nation in sacks, pressures, hits, hurries, pass rush, win rate, true set pass grade, everything that measures, do you get after the quarterback? Bailey was very, very highly rated. And now he is the worst run defender of the top 3, but I think that speaks more to Bain and Reese being really excellent against the run and Bailey just being okay. He's got a stronger upper body than I think your typical designated pass rusher would. And it's interesting because he's the kind of player where, his last year at Stanford, and I did check out some Stanford film, and he looked slim, man. I don't know what he weighed, but he looked about like in the high 230s. Maybe he looked like Will McDonald. At Stanford, and he was pretty productive. But he looked small. He looked slim. And if drafted then, if he came out in 2024, the talking point would have been, okay, can you gain 12 whatever pounds, 15 pounds, and then will he still have the gas as a pass rusher? That would have been the projection pick if he came out last year. But he just decided to hit the portal, goes and gets a little bag, goes to Texas Tech with a bunch of other psychopaths on that defense, like Lee Hunter, like Jacob Rodriguez. And it works. He puts on the weight, and he's even better as a pass rusher. And I think he made himself some money by betting on himself. So I like that. I like that he goes out there with 0 drip, no eye black, like no sleeves, nothing. Like that's it's a different kind of dude. It's kind of intimidating. Like he doesn't care. He's like a player from the 90s. Him and Bain are kind of throwbacks in that way. But I think the reason now it sounds like what I'm describing is clearly the pick 2, because the most valuable skill set the Jets can attain at pick 2 is likely pass rush. And Bailey, I would say unequivocally can claim that he is the best at rushing the passer right now. So why is he behind 2 other guys? I think that the run defense limitations exist. They're not massive red flags, but they do exist. And I just like the versatility and in one player, and then just the crazy untapped ceiling in another player. So it's nothing against him. Like I think he is absolutely on the board for pick 2. He is the worst against the run, not terrible, but the worst against the run, and he is the oldest. Not super old, but he'll be 23 when his rookie season starts. So where you compare it to a guy like Reese, he's 2 whole years older than him. And we'll talk about Reese next, because Reese is number 2 for me. But Bailey is a beast. I don't see how a guy like that makes it out of the top 10, really, in this draft class. Reese has been a huge riser for me when I first did this at the beginning, or maybe around Christmas, New Year's time. He was number 6 for me. Now he's up to number 2, and it's just a matter of watching more games from him, because I thought he didn't have his best moments the last couple of weeks, even into like the college football playoff. It didn't stand out as much as some other guys like Bailey did versus Oregon, like Bain did all the way throughout the entire college football playoff. But Reese, and this is contingent on his home base being an edge rusher. That's what I would do. Reese is a 6'4", broad shoulders, long arms. His wingspan is going to be probably close to a foot longer than Bain's, because he's got 35-inch arms. Bain has 30-inch arms, and Reese has a wider shoulders. So you're talking about a foot longer wingspan. She's a big ass hands. Like, he has just got a frame where he's listed at 243, but he could quite comfortably be walking around at 255 by his 3rd season, like no problem, and hold that weight really, really well. So I have no concerns about him being able to attain the size profile it would take to play edge, and he already has the play strength. Like, I don't know if Arvel Reese is going to be great, but it's not going to be because he doesn't have the strength to set the edge or play the run. It's not going to be because he's some Will McDonald or anything like that. Couldn't be more different. He is so powerful. He will stand up guards. He'll ragdoll tackles who have 80 pounds on him on one play. He'll chase down a run from the weak side on another play. He'll drop as a QB spy and then close to get his team off the field on 3rd down. Very productive in true pass sets opportunities. He only had 77 snaps as a true pass rush sets. So if you're out on that, you're like, dude, this guy did what you want him to do 80 times. I honestly think that's valid. If you're like, dude, we can't mess this up, that's too risky, I honestly, I won't hold you for that. I get it. I just see the vision, man. I see it with him. I really do. I think it's going to work out if a team can commit to him and teaching him how to play edge. But within those 77 snaps, he had 4 sacks and 15 pressures, which is crazy efficient. Obviously, he had 4 more sacks and 11 more pressures on blitzes coming from off the ball. So 8 sacks in total is a lot. It's a lot of production for a guy who was playing off the ball a ton. And he'll still be 20 years old when the Jets are playing the Giants in the Snoopy Bowl, man. He's not turning 21 until in between the end of the preseason and the beginning of the regular season. And you remember Clay Matthews, like a lot of comps get thrown around, like Micah Parsons. If we're going to shoot for a really high comp and role and level of impact, I think a 3-4 Sam linebacker, where what Andrew Van Ginkel does in Brian Flores defense, obviously you'd hope for an even better version of that, where it's 80% defensive line, 20% roaming and getting weird. Clay Matthews, he could so home base edge, 20%, do whatever you want, drop him as a spy. He can, there was a play where the Broncos were playing the Bills in the playoffs, and just because of a matchup and numbers to one side, Nick Bonito had to run with a running back on a wheel route, 35 yards on the field. Blanket coverage incomplete. That's the kind of stuff you could do with Reese in a pinch. You can get weird if teams want to match up hunt against you. You can get a little weird, get a little creative. But to me, home base, edge, and go get the quarterback. Young man, ceiling is there. You want ceiling with the number 2 pick, but I think the floor is bolstered by he could be a really good hybrid-y McGee. Hybrid-y McGee is disappointing at 2. But it's a floor. It's not like an Isaiah Simmons bust situation. His floor is higher than I think some of the skeptics give him credit for. Now, number 1 for me is still Ruben Bain. Bain will be the first victim of draft fatigue. I think that's what's coming. He finished the college football season so hot that he can only go down. So draft fatigue is coming for Ruben Bain. PFF has him as the second best player, first rated non-quarterback in the class, and I'm in alignment with PFF on this one. Bain brings an immediate impact, a floor, versatility, and attitude that I think is going to appeal to coaching staffs, maybe more so than executives and nerds. He really upped his game when the stakes in the competition rose. He's pretty flexible for a 270-pounder. And I'm pretty confident. I'm very confident he's going to be an excellent run defender on the edge. I'm very confident he will be a massively disruptive pass rusher on the interior. I think the question is, does his historic lack of length, and I would say maybe not ideal overall agility and athleticism for the position. He's very athletic and pretty bendy for a guy who is heavy as he is, but not a crazy athlete that you might see normally taken this high. And if it gives him trouble on a down in and down out edge, he's either a player that has to do fourth and edge in base in a 4-3 and kick inside situationally on pass rushing downs, or he is a pure 3-4 defensive end, Kobe Turner type of player. And that's a relatively high floor relative to the class. The Jets, if they're going to run a 4-3 under Glenn, starting him in base and kicking him inside would give them 2 needs filled. And I think he brings the most immediate impact, and I think probably the highest floor. And as the Jets roster is currently constructed, the most seamless fit, just spraying some WD-40, elixing all the ales on your defensive front. Ruben Bain, number 1. There it is. Top 33. And we'll talk all soon.